Hey guys, this is Matt Mapati. It's coming here just from my room, and I just want to get some things off my chest. It's in my mind recently about one team, one sports team in downtown Cincinnati, a team that is smelling throughout the course through downtowns, um, a horrible smell near the riverfront. You know what I'm talking about. It's the Cincinnati Reds. And recently now, a couple minutes ago, like 15, 20 minutes ago, the Reds have lost their 11th straight game in the 2022 season. This has not been a great start for the Reds, which I expected to happen, even though there's been injuries in the roster. India, Stevenson, Castillo, um, Mostakis, all like the core guys, starters, they're hurt, but it's not their fault. It's not their fault. It's not the players' fault. It's not the manager David Bell's fault. It's sadly management fault and ownership. I've been a fan of this team since I was about 9 years old. That's when I was really starting into sports. Um, when I think I was 9 years old, I think they clinched the division for the second time in franchise history and made the playoffs in 15 years. That was like my big like moment of fandom of following the Reds. And since then, I've been following the team ever since then. I mean, we had some solid teams in 2012, 2013, before it kind of fell off, made a collapse skid. You had to forcefully play in the wild card game, one game wild card game, and you get embarrassed by the Pirates. And since then, it's been nothing but constant mediocrity, constant losing, constant contradiction, confusion, unsure direction of what this franchise is trying to be in, and it now is affecting as of today. Early before the season started, I think before spring training, the Reds traded Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez, all the core guys that we all love, respected. They didn't even have the thought of re-signing Nick Castellanos. I expected to happen because I expected because they are so incompetent of even trying to get Castellanos to come back. But it's been a cycle with this team since 2020, when we thought, okay, 2020 was a scoring season, and they couldn't score a run in against the Braves in the wild card series. This team has some few blanks that they can fill in, like the bullpen needs a little bit more depth, and trying to get a shortstop that can go along and trying to not expose Eugenio Suarez sometimes mediocre defense, but it didn't do it. They just aggressively getting worse and worse, cutting payroll. And, that started with, selling all Roger Glaces, Archie Bradley, and the team fought hard. They were competitive. I mean, they had heart, but it was not enough because of the explosion of the terrible bullpen and not addressing that earlier or during the offseason. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, it's shameful, because I feel like it's been a huge problem with Major League Baseball, even despite signing the new CBA, that small market teams don't want to be competitive. They don't want to put in a winning franchise for the fans. It's not just the Reds. I can name multiple teams who have ownership that in a small market, but don't really care about putting competitive field, because making profits, making money, and bringing revenue is important for them than putting a winning team on the field. I can name Bob Nutting for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I can name the Angelos family from the Orioles. I can name even the A's. Even though the A's They fell in that category because I feel bad for A's fans, but the A's, I think they just want to move out of Oakland as soon as possible because they don't want to keep playing that dumper with the Coliseum for a long period of time. And yeah, it's been a huge problem, with Major League Baseball. With these small market teams can't compete with the big market teams like LA, New York, Boston. Those big markets, always signing the big name free agents, et cetera, et cetera. But with the Reds, it's like they fit in that category, but they're doing it in a way that is very contradicting and very incompetent of and having a lack of thought or even plan to make sure that you stay competitive consistently for next for many years. Like you look at the Rays, Tampa Bay Rays. People always say the Rays have been a perfect example of how to run a small market franchise. I mean, the Rays always been knowing how to scout great talent, young talent, and how to find a way to expose their flaws. And some of their players, like Blake Snell, being traded to San Diego, and recently they just traded Austin Meadows to Detroit. But from the outcome of those trades, those trades have worked out for them. I remember they also traded for Austin Meadows for the Chris Archer. That trade was perfect for Tampa, bad for Pittsburgh though. But they know how to create to make they know how to correct their flaws. They know how to scout and how to get players that really fit into their culture, what they're constantly building there for that team, despite having one of the lowest payrolls in baseball, playing in a dump stadium like Tropicana Field, and consistently, be competitive. Many Reds fans will die for that type of that race team right now, because they know they play in a really tough division with Boston, with New York, with Toronto. They know that, and they want to be competitive, and they don't want to keep constantly being bad and trash for decades. And that's the problem with the Reds. They have no sort of bread and butter to what they're trying to do. I know in the farm system, they have some promising prospects that I have been following, earlier a little bit before the baseball season started, like Ellie De La Cruz. I think he's going to have some potential. Austin Hendrick, Matt McClain. But that's the only few position players I can name off of from the Reds organization. I think most of it, they have been good with developing their pitchers, trying to, get them ready get them ready, in a big league level. You look at it now, Hunter Green. I love watching Hunter Green play. I think Hunter Green will be a future number one ace for this rotation for many years to come. As long as he keeps growing, as long as he keeps maturing with his pitches, and if he stays healthy, then he could definitely be the ace for this rotation. Modelo can be a potential 2 or 3 starter in the future. So they have been doing good with developing pitchers, but however, position players, because there's so much holes now in the outfield and a little bit in the infield since they traded away Winker and Suarez, it's like right now when I look at Nick Senzel, it's like, okay, like he's been hurt. He has been not been consistently hitting the ball well. It's still early in the season, but I'm just hopefully this will be his last chance to prove to the Reds that he's gonna be that number 2, 3 pick they made, I think 2016, and so he's still that guy. I'm really hoping he still be that guy. Really hoping. I mean, before the season started, this team was just a few pieces away, refix that bullpen, get a shortstop, get a backup, starting caliber major league shortstop that is not too high name pricey, keep it simple, and you easily be competing for not only for the playoffs but for the division, because I don't think the NL Central is not that deep that it was back in the early 2010s. I remember I remember the NL Central was so deep, with Pirates being good, Cubs being good, the Reds being good, Cardinals consistently always be good because they are a smart organization. Even though I hate to admit that, but it's true. I mean, they produce so many great talents without their farm system. They know how to develop their players, and they know how to keep them in a position of what their role is, and not try to jump from one role to this role to that role. That's what the Reds are, I think, constantly doing since this like not in for about a couple of years. They're not getting their players in a role or position that be like their main ground for many years. They always find a way to contradict themselves, and that's been the problem with this ownership. For now, I'm kind of thinking and processing in my mind throughout the years. They always do that. Like the Castellini family has either not having the knowledge or the constant um, doubt of what they want to build here for this city. And since that is the problem, I think now they're more worried about is trying to collect and earn money and revenue for not only for the team but for them themselves. Because don't get me wrong, Bob Castellini, he owns like a produce business company, ever, like throughout like for a long time. And when he bought the Reds, that's kind of been like his second like go-to for collecting money, which is basically, owning the Reds. And since he bought the Reds for $270 million, it's not just him, it's other, partners that also help him buy the Reds. The Reds are now worth about $1 billion. And you're telling fans that the reason why you decided to trade Barnhart, all those guys, all Barnhart, Winker, etc., is because we lost money, and we lost money from like COVID, or like again align on payroll to our resources. But you're not okay, but you're not showing, or you're not being transparent enough that you actually lost money from COVID. Everybody lost COVID. The whole Major League Baseball lost so much money from COVID. It's not just the Reds, it's everybody. Everybody. But that can't be an excuse. That can't be an excuse at all. At all. The reason why you're selling off your best guys who are former all-stars or gold glove caliber catcher. It's not an excuse. It's not an excuse. And since now they're 2-13, it's probably the worst start I've seen from this team since 2018. And that 2018 team had some depth in the roster. It had talent in the come up. But sadly, Brian Price was managing, still, and that was probably his last hurrah before he got fired. But I feel bad for the play again, for the players, for David Bell. My fear is the typical Reds thing to do is that they're going to probably fire David Bell because the team's not performing. I mean, you're basically throwing him under the bus. You'd be making him the scapegoat. You kind of handicapped him because he has little to work with, despite the injuries. He has little to work with. I mean, he has won more games in a season than Brian Price ever did when he was managing the Reds. And he was able to get the team to 83 wins. I still think David Bell still has work to do as a manager to how he managed his bullpen, etc. But he had to deal with a bad bullpen last year, and that team won 83 games. And MLB, they added another wild card spot for both leagues. So if that new playoff format would have existed last year, the Reds would have had the last wild card spot for the 2021 season postseason. So that, yeah, we were this close to competing now for like playoffs, and fans were happy. I was kind of being a little optimistic because that's just a fan of me. But sadly, we're not gonna get that in probably a long time, and I'm just very disgusted and disappointed on this organization refusement of at least trying to be competitive on the field. And that's been a huge problem for Major League Baseball, trying to resolve the problem of small market teams decide decision to tank because that's the way to be competitive in the future. That's not the solution to trying to be competitive if you're a small market franchise. I'm coming to a realization that some owners use that as an excuse to wait to cover up their ineptitude to continue being bad. You know, I mean, shoot. I mean, the Twins, they signed Carlos Correa for $100 million. I think nearly over $100 million. And at least their end made some good solid trades just trying to make the team competitive. Hey, they traded for Sonny. Heck, they signed. They traded Sonny. We traded Sonny Gray to Minnesota for a young pitching prospect, Chase Petty, who's just 18 years old. I think he has promise. It's still real early. I mean, but again, like the Reds, when it comes to making trades, it just feels like to me they always have to get they always been taken advantage by other teams, which is just looks bad for the team, for the organization. Um, it just really looks bad. It really looks bad. And yeah, again, like you gotta have a vision and plan, and you have to stick with that plan. You can't you can't bury your plan or cancel it if you're a small market franchise. You gotta stick to it and trust in that plan. And if it doesn't work, then you gotta be transparent to your fan base that we're gonna go into a new direction that feels like we're best gonna be competitive along the way. And the Reds are not doing that. It seems like they're rebuilding again. I feel like they've been rebuilding to me constantly since 2014. So that's all I want to say. Um, I mean, I feel like this is gonna get worse as the season goes on. I think once some players, when they come back healthy, I think they will play a little bit better. But this season will only get worse, and it's all thanks to the Castellinis of putting money, finances, and resources, whatever they want to say, when you want to, whatever term they want to use that term, that word, over of trying to be competitive team on the field. All we can do as Reds fans is not go to any games this season. I'm playing out to go any game this season. I want to, but I want to for the players. I want to see Hunter Green pitch. I want to see him pitch because he's just a special generation talent. When you look at his maturity, and as not only as a player but as a pitcher, that maturity is impressive. But it's not gonna be for this. I can't do it because it's not. I don't want to support an ownership and management that doesn't want to have a winning culture, again, like team on the field. And we look at we know we gave our all when it comes to the Bengals. We not coming to the games, putting bags in our heads. We sent a message to the Bengals organization, and the Brown family responded. They responded, and they went out in free agency, and they got players that fit to what they're trying to build here in Zach Taylor's coaching, and it worked, and it worked successfully. And now the Bengals are considered to be one of the best teams in the AFC, and there's a winning list for Bengals season tickets for next season. And when training camp starts and once the preseason starts, whole Great American Ballpark is probably going to be mostly empty, just like the A's Oakland Coliseum is right now. And all thanks to the Castellinis. Great job. Great job. I mean, I've been a Reds fan again, so I was 9 years old. It was my first love of loving the game of baseball. But sadly to me, the sport has become a business driven league. Um, and it's it's unfortunate. It's very disappointing. Um, yeah. Sell the team, Bob. Sell the god dang team. But it's not gonna happen. The only way we can send a message is to not come to the games. Simple as that. Don't come to the games. Do not constantly support a team that doesn't want to be competitive. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. That's all I gotta say. Mamapati, signing off.